where exactly is the line between rational discourse and emotional domination and submission? And this is really where you need the formal logic to understand it. Then, where I think the meat is really on the bones for what I have to offer here is how do we speed up identification? Because formal fallacies, while they're great and they're comprehensive, they will never fail you. You might not have enough time to go through it in your head.
I have to learn the hard way.
I mean, like, okay, was that a poisoned well fallacy? Was that a straw man fallacy? But I mean, by that time, the guy's running circles around you, and you've got an audience that's already thinking that you're an idiot, and so on and so forth. The third part is, if I tell you the name of it, then I have to explain more of it in depth. I won't do that. But the third part is, here are core concepts. There are 5 core concepts that I've identified that it's not comprehensive. There's some things that you won't be able to identify this, but it's kind of like an 80-20 rule. Knowing 20% of the rules allow you to play 80% of the game. This will catch so much by understanding these concepts. And if you understand these concepts, if you see somebody attempting to make an argument against one of these concepts, you don't have to find the fallacy. You already know one happened. We were getting into the last conversation before we got cut off from the time limit. But we were talking about, for example, there's the philosophical concept of is there such a thing as objective reality, right? Yeah. And so on one side of philosophy says, yes, there is such a thing as objective reality. And the other side of philosophy says, no, everything's subjective. Now, the traditional philosophical way of addressing this would be something to the effect of, okay, because if you're trying to speak to me and convince me of something, there must be something objective that you're trying to convince me of. So your argument is self-defeating, which is a completely 100% sound rational circuit proof. But we already talked about the rational circuit, or the emotional circuit doesn't give a rip about the rational circuit, right? Okay, you proved it, so what? So a person could just completely ignore that and still attempt to manipulate you. And what I've found is that if somebody ever, this specific example, starts arguing to you from something about subjective reality, they're setting up to manipulate you. Or they're actively trying to manipulate you. You don't need to find the fallacy. Because fundamentally, people base their behavior on what they believe that they're responsible for. So if you're responsible for something, we intuitively understand that we should act based on that responsibility. I mentioned this last time when we got cut off. If my house is on fire and my kids are in the house, and I know that my kids are in a house on fire, do I have a responsibility to get them out of the house? It's self-evident, yes. Because I know I have that responsibility, I gotta go do it. If I didn't know, now it would be an incredibly tragic situation, but if I didn't know, I wouldn't have that responsibility. Although, I mean, you could go, at that point, you really got to start going back, why didn't you know? Right? Yeah. Let's really make sure that you had a good reason for not knowing. But I think I get my point across, is that depending on what responsibility is going to affect what my actions are. Now, where this gets manipulative, if I can convince you that your responsibility or my responsibility is different from the objective reality that it is, and I think that we can argue that there is an objective reality to what you should be responsible for, or what you are responsible for. If I can get you to think otherwise, I can change what you do.
Yes.
Hey, I'm going to go over to your house and mess up your whole room, and if I can come up with some BS of why that's your fault that your room's messed up, now you got to clean it up, not me. You understand that you're responsible for it, so you clean it up.
Well, it's like the Huck Finn painting the fence. That scene. There, if you can convince the others of this bogus responsibility,
exactly, they will act on it. So that's what sophistry fundamentally is. Now, in terms of this objective reality, does it exist or doesn't it exist argument? Responsibility is a subcategory of reality. Of objective reality. So if there's no such thing as objective reality, consequently, there's no such thing as responsibility. So when somebody's setting that up, it usually comes. People think they're being sneaky from it. There's like this wind up that they get ready for it, because usually people don't just say, "Well, that's just your opinion, man." Like, we're trying to figure out who's responsible for what, and I lay out an argument of hey, your house is on fire and your kids are in it, so you're responsible for getting them out right now. And you come back and say, well, that's just your opinion, man. That is on its face stupid. That's not going to fool a audience, right? Mm-hmm. But people who do to try to attack objective reality in order to set up a manipulative situation, it starts off something like, in the course of history, this has been a subject that has been debated a lot, and for going back thousands of years, there have been people on the side that you've been arguing, and also for thousands of years there have been people on the other side of what's been argued of that argument, and it's gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So now, we're in the modern day, we're still arguing about it. So because of this, you can't say with any objective conclusion that what you're saying is actually true. That was just a long-winded way of saying that's your opinion, man. I mean, if we want to go back to formal logic, you didn't address anything that I said, right? I don't know if that's technically a straw man or you'd call that one something else, but you didn't address what I said. Mm-hmm. I'm stating that as soon as you hear this thing coming that I'm going to deny objective reality, you can stop listening. You can understand that we're now in a win-lose situation. And
we're not on that rational circuit anymore.
Yeah, well, even if I'm trying to be, I'm not, right? We've left the rational circuit. And that what I've typically found, and I want to put a caveat on this. When I'm talking about sophistry, this is different from narcissism.
Yes.
Whatever strategy I talk about on here, do not try it on a narcissist. It's a completely different animal. So, someone who has narcissistic behavior, it doesn't matter if you do what I'm about to recommend. They will be 7 chess moves ahead of you, right? You have to take a completely different strategy with them. But what I found with what we'll call your low grade sophist or sophistry engager is that they don't want to fight. The reason they engaged in sophistry to begin with is because they don't want you to hit back. Mm-hmm. So if you simply say, look, I understand we're having a fight and I'm prepared to fight you. I mean, even if you say it in that terminology, oh man, they got somewhere else to be right now. They are gone, right? I mean, take the guy at my table for an example. Once I bared my teeth, it's like, oh shit, sorry, I don't want to swear the show. Man, I didn't sign up for this. I'm out of here. Right? Yep. If he had the gusto, the gumption to just dominate me openly, he'd just be like, "Hey man, I don't like your shirt. You're an idiot," in front of everybody. Why hide it? So this is a long-winded explanation of the 3 pieces. This third piece is identifying these core issues. So when you hear somebody starting to break one of these core issues, and these are philosophical issues. I try to talk about it without using the term philosophy because it's not necessary. And when you start talking about philosophy, 90% of the population, 99% of the population immediately falls asleep. So I think if I can navigate without talking about that, it's better. There's these core issues within philosophy where I argue objective reality is philosophy. Subjective reality is sophistry. And let's go to where you were going outside of the interpersonal relationships.
Sure.
If both sides are presented as philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
You're muddying the waters to the point where a person can't identify what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have an educational system, for example, that teaches these things as equally valid, or even the subjective is more valid than the objective, first you're creating a race of dorky, low-level sophists. But second, you're creating a generation of people or a swath of people who are easily manipulated.
Yes. Oh, yes. And part of that, too, is the rise, I would say, since the 80s in these United States, and I suppose in the world, of the consumer, this concept of the consumer, which has replaced that of other ways of people seeing. And the consumer is one who is meant to be served. He has no responsibility. Mm-hmm. And you see that in education as soon as anything else. And it grows. It grew, spilled over a long time ago from retail. And you see these expectations, and it all just saps responsibility in one's life and one's participation in the community.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because responsibility, I'm not going to say it's equal to, but it's almost equal to power.
Mm-hmm.
Because responsibility is actually another word for free will.
Mm.
Look at the word, your ability to respond. Well, what the heck is that? That's your free will, right? Your free will is also your power, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, let's slice this at any level. Let's slice this financially. Let's slice this politically. Let's slice this religiously. Let's say I'm a religious leader or a political leader or someone who's very rich. My free will has been expanded because I have greater influence because of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I take those things away, my free will has shrunk because, if I've got $10 billion or $100 billion, I could buy Twitter. Right? And then I could change the course of human conversation because, Elon Musk, obviously, is who we're referring to, he can, he had the power to do that through money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a free will choice. So responsibility, free will, and power are all very intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if I can continue to sap away your responsibility, you're responsible for nothing, you're responsible for nothing, you're responsible for nothing, I'm sapping away your free will, which means I'm sapping away your power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess fundamentally, if I want to talk about intellectual self-defense, is I want to make people more powerful.
And I remember, I'll give you an interpersonal example, kind of spilling out into business, we'll say. Years ago, probably up on 10 years ago, Dylan, I had, long story short, I had to get emissions testing on the car. We have this thing in Connecticut.
Oh, yeah. We used to have that here. It finally ended here, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
The big shots in Hartford they need more cocaine and hookers, so they have all these little piddling taxes and everything, which is interesting because Connecticut makes a lot of the war chest, a lot of these bombs and things. But apparently my car is concerning. Anyhow, I had to get the thing, and so the police wouldn't harass me. And I took it to this mechanic in town who's quite infamous for being kind of a shyster, but I didn't know that. Uh-huh. And so here the son of a gun is telling me, because I had the check engine light on, telling me, we need to redo all the wiring in the car. We need to do this and that and the other. And I don't have money for this. I was a dishwasher and a very poor teacher then. Now I'm just a poor teacher. But the point is, I said, there is no way I can afford this. And so
$4,000 later or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, okay, fine. This is an obligation on me. And I went on the DMV website and I found out that there were like plan Bs, and they could have a second opinion from Hartford would come down and second guess the mechanic and all this jazz.
Yeah.
The point is, it's like the light bulb you talk about with that guy in Europe. For me, this was like this pivotal realization when I mentioned that I'm going to take advantage of this mercy from the DMV, that they would have this allowance for people who didn't have money to have a second guy take a look at it. Mm-hmm. This mechanic, again, face changed. He was a Greek dude. And he had a little chit chat with the wife there. And then like his demeanor completely changed. He reset the battery, took off the positive cable, wait 15 minutes, reset the whole thing, said, go down, it resets the computer, check engine light's gone. But the point is, it's like a mystery movie.
Well,
when
you threatened him with the law is what you did.
In the most minor way,
Yeah.
in the most minor way. And the whole thing just crumbled, and it was he pressed a button and it was done.
Mm-hmm.
But it's power.
Yeah, it's power. And when I say you threaten him with the law, I want to emphasize you were actually threatening him on the physical level at some level, right? Because I mean, fundamentally, that's what the law is. If he gets messed in with the law, he can get fines, he can get his license revoked, he can get whatever. And if he ignores them, at some point at the end of the day, a sheriff comes with a gun to take his property or to close him down or evict him or whatever, right? So, you drop the circuit, I like to say. And then suddenly, this guy's not just sitting there, thinking we're having a rational conversation and not defending himself. Crap.
Yeah. The light bulb, or it's like a mystery movie. You pull the lever. Once you have that self-defense, and you realize, and it is that ability to respond. Exactly what you're saying.
Yes, and then I always have like three things going through my head at once, and eventually I'll wrap it back around, but I think sometimes people think I'm like getting sidetracked. I am, but I am remembering where I came from, right? Yeah. So going back to what I was saying about the two most important points of intellectual self-defense. The first is identification, which the three core subjects that I talked about are all geared around identification. Mm-hmm. And identification is very formulaic. I just explained to you kind of in a formula of what it's like. But when you come to actually doing the self-defense, it's a different animal. It really requires hands-on. I mean, I could talk about a couple principles. Like I said, just stop being reasonable is number one. But when do you walk away? When do you engage? When do you get openly hostile? When do you get kind of submersive? When do you kind of throw their stuff back in their face? When do you do all this sort of stuff? I mean, on one level, there's kind of this point of you can have your own style, and one style isn't necessarily better than the other. I mean, think of like a MMA, right? People from different styles are coming in all the time, testing, which style of martial art is going to work against what other style of martial art. And I mean, we could have an argument till we're blue in the face of which one's the best, but they all work at some level, right? How good are you at working your particular style? And again, with the martial art thing, I can give you ideas in a book or in a video or a podcast or something, but it's really something that you yourself have to try out. And I will say, if you are the type of person who gets more reasonable the more you get into a non-reasonable interaction, I call this the chess dilemma.
Yes.
Is that chess is very, very analogous to the formal rules of logic. In chess, you have a specific board with specific pieces, with specific rules, and a specific way to win the game. If you don't follow those rules, are you playing chess? No, you're doing something else.
Yes.
Right? It's something that's not chess. Similar to formal rules of logic, there's specific rules, a specific way to set things up, and a specific way to engage in discourse that keeps us on those formal rules. And if you stop doing those formal rules, you're not doing rational discourse anymore. You're doing something else. Now I'm arguing you're fighting, right? So similarly, if we're playing chess and I start making moves up on you, start moving my knight 3-1 one direction or one the other, or moving my pawn across the board, or just putting pieces that were taken off and back on the board or whatever, and you respond by going, whoa, I better really think about this and play my best chess game.
You're doing two different things.
They're two different things, and you're losing at the game which is actually being played. And that game is I'm making up the rules, and you're not. What most people do who are smart, they continue playing chess.
Yep.
And I'm saying stop that. Stop being reasonable. First step of intellectual self-defense, identify. Once you identified, stop being reasonable. If everybody who's watching this now or recording could like, share, and subscribe it helps us out a lot.
Yeah.
I hate saying it, but it's just true.